Let's get into it. I'm Remington Vandergriff, licensed clinical social worker, board certified diplomat. Welcome to Bonafide and Unfiltered, the mental health podcast. It's a free form forum where male mental health professionals discuss all things related to mental health in men, focusing on empirical data and both personal and professional experiences, leaving behind the rhetoric. This is not just another manosphere podcast that you've come to love or hate. Depending on your lens, you may like or not like what you hear here. You may feel seen and heard, or you may be offended. But no matter what, you'll learn something about men's mental health that you'll hopefully take with you. This inaugural episode is going to be on the topic of stigma. And joining me are Paul Richardson and Ben Palmer, both of whom bring professionalism, dedication, and a unique lens to this topic. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll dig in.
Paul, feel free.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Paul Richardson, licensed clinical social worker, uh, former active duty social worker, prior Marine, prior mailman, and current current law enforcement therapist. I guess everything I say here is my opinion, and it's not doesn't reflect anything from any other entity. Right? Sounds
Sure.
good. Okay, we'll go with that.
That'll work. My name is Ben Palmer, current MSW student. Prior Air Force, did 8 years, and just love working with veterans specifically, but just anyone with mental health issues. Huge therapy advocate, mental health advocate. Uh, Having reaped the benefits of it myself, so
Awesome.
just excited to be here.
Sounds good. All right, so let's go ahead and dig in. So the first thing we talk about, we said, is stigma. So, from you guys' perspective, how would you define the stigma that is around men's mental health?
I mean, primarily when it comes to men, we're expected to be strong, silent, and stoic. And none of those
Yep.
mean I'm going to go get help from someone else. Somehow, along the way, we figured out that if we can't do it ourselves, we must be some kind of a tremendous pussy, or we can't do it. So it's bad to go get help from anybody else. I am a rugged individualist, and I don't need nobody to do nothing. And turns out that's so wrong. Turns out we
Yeah,
really
yeah.
we
You're
really crapped the bed on that one.
Yeah, we're typically perceived as weak or less masculine for
Right.
asking for help. And I know
Yep.
that that's it's kind of starting to shift in the more positive light, but it's still very much a thing. Like I talk to guys all the time. They're like, "No, I can't go to therapy." I'm like, "Yeah, you can." I was like, "Therapy's literally saved my life. If I can suck it up and do it, you can." I was like, there's no shame in being, scared or, you know, however you may feel in some kind of way about it. But once you get into it, you have nowhere else to go but up.
Yep.
Like, and it's like it's like you're gonna make yourself a better person. You just gotta swallow your pride and bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But it's
and I feel like men specifically are responsible for the stigma that we like. I feel like the stigma is like self-imposed. Like
mhm.
we've put it on ourselves at some point. It's like, nope, we're not allowed to do that. Like it's almost like a generational thing. It's like my dad never went to therapy. God knows he could have used it,
Absolutely.
but I think we all have.
Yeah.
We could all use therapy in some form or fashion. But it's just one of those things. Like, all right,
Yeah.
you don't talk about your feelings. You don't ask other people for help. You suck it up and, like you said,
And it's
do what you
interesting,
got to
Paul.
do,
You brought up the
and then just
stoicism
keep
thing,
moving.
and it's so interesting because I want to do a
So
Yeah.
whole episode on just that because there's such a misinterpretation of what stoicism even is. People think that because it sounds like stone, that it means being stone
Hmm.
cold and not having these emotions. But if you look into the actual writings of like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and those folks, it's a lot more about not being overly emotional, but expressing and having and experiencing those emotions accurately and fully, while not letting it consume you. But we've
Mhm.
become this thing of, oh man, we got to be stone faced and, like you said, to provide, protect, and shut up and just do it kind of thing. And it's evident on like, yeah, mm-hmm,
Yeah. No, definitely. Stoicism is all about integration. Stoicism is all about
mm-hmm,
understanding.
mm-hmm,
It's
yep,
fantastic. But we just
mm-hmm.
stop at being stoic. Just
And it was interesting what you said about
there we
the
go.
self imposed kind
I'm
of
a
thing because you get
man.
on like a single dad's page or a dad's
Yeah.
page, or just a men's group in general, and it's like split half and half these days. It seems like you'll have some that get it, they've been through it and are supportive, and then the ones that are like, oh, all you need to do is go to the gym and everything will be fine. And like, not that self care is not needed, but there's more to it than just going to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, gym's a great form of self-care if that's your thing, but go lifting weights alone is not therapeutic. Not at least
Yeah.
not enough
One of the guys
to
on the
be
page that I was
the
on
end
said it
all
really
be
well.
all
He
as
said
far
that
as
we end
cures
up
go.
with a generation of really fit,
Or,
dysfunctional men. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
And
Dysfunctional,
it's tough
insecure.
because
I think that memo missed me
Insecurity, I think,
because
is a big
and
one.
you look at some of the things I pulled up,
I
some of the
don't. The
different
gym is
stats,
not
and
for me.
there's a million different things out there. But one of them that's the biggest thing to me about this stigma is that around 80% of the suicides in this country are men, and that is huge. It's huge. And you talk about
Oh yeah,
the stigma of not going in. So then the people that do go in, and you end up having shame, from other people for going in, and then that compounds things. But so what this is saying here says, and of course, every study you're going to find different things, but some different numbers. Like it says, 1 in 10 men experience depression or anxiety, which when you look at most of the things in the DSM, we're talking around between like 1 to 3% of the population gets most of those things. Or well, those things are 1 to 3% of the population. So if you're talking 10%, that's a pretty high skewed number towards men.
yeah, that's a
And it says about
considerable
42%
sized
of
population.
men with mental health concerns receive the treatment, compared to 57% with women. So being more acceptable and things of that nature. But yeah, those are huge numbers, and that definitely leads to men not going in to seek therapy, and too with the stoicism part of it, and like the put a smile on your face and the toxic positivity kind of stuff, pretending that everything's okay, and then you see the Robin Williams and the and the Chester Benningtons and the Anthony Bourdains and stuff that look like things are okay on the outside, but it's just not. I don't know, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just lost a Marine friend of mine. Shoot, it'll be 2 years this year, I think, maybe. Dude, I mean, he and I didn't talk all the time, but when we did talk, it was always picked up right where he left off. But like I'd keep up with him on Facebook and social media and stuff. He was he was extremely active in like the combat motorcycle veterans groups. Huge supporter, always out doing bike rides for charities, smile on his face. You would have thought he was living a dream. And then I was at a friend's house one day and a buddy of mine messaged me. He's like, "Hey, so and so's dead." I was like, "What the fuck? Like, what happened?" He's like,
And that's
"Yeah,
a
he
good
killed
point too.
himself."
You're
I was like,
talking about
"Fucking
just
Christ!"
and not just in the veteran world, but in men in general having support groups of some kind, whether it's motorcycles or going to pool hall or bowling or whatever kind of thing. That tribe is a pretty important factor in healing and maintaining. But
Yeah.
we've all got to be on the same page, though.
Oh yeah. Which is, I mean, which is funny because that's something that my therapist and I were just talking about. He was like, "You've got to get out and make friends." He's like, "You can't just sit around the house and be by yourself." I was like, I know, but then it's
Right.
like, well, I like being by
But people
myself.
By
suck.
and large.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I hate being around. I was like, I don't like being around people. He's like, well,
Right.
unfortunately for you, he's like, you don't have a choice. He's like, I'm assigning you homework. You have to like put yourself out there. I'm like, fuck. All right, I guess. So I've got like a couple of really close friends, but one of them lives in North Carolina and the other one lives opposite side of Nashville. So I'm like, the getting together we don't get to get together as frequently as I'd like, but I guess I'll hang around people. But no, I mean, which is ironic because I feel like people that do certain jobs are always worse about doing their job. Like my brother's a mechanic, my brother-in-law is a mechanic, but he's terrible at taking care of his own cars. And I feel like I'm very much the same way. Like I'm great at helping other people get their shit together and like giving them advice, but turning it in on myself. It's like, no, I'm not doing
And
that.
that even gets into the whole,
Can't do it.
difference between
Not
being
interested.
extroverted and being introverted, and where you get your energies and stuff, or like the ambivert that people don't necessarily always understand, that kind of mixture of the two. And so, I mean, some people don't necessarily get the energy from a social support structure, or at least one that's physical and like, meeting up and having drinks and stuff. Maybe it's more of a, Facebook group that you have trusted people in, or things of that nature. But so one of the things, so we've kind of talked about some of the manufactured stigma that like we kind of put on ourselves. But what do you guys think about some of the real world stigmas, like the actual things that really are legitimately concerns about, seeking mental health and stuff like that, or opening up? Mm-hmm.
Well, the
Job
tricky
loss.
thing is like coming
Oh,
from a military law enforcement background.
Mm-hmm.
If you go see a
Mm-hmm.
shrink, you might lose your gun for a bit. And if you lose your gun for a bit, you can't do your job, or
Mm-hmm.
you can't deploy, or you can't jump, or you can't fly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
stigma is still
Mm-hmm.
there. We can't say there's no stigma. It's there. You're gonna be on a profile. You're gonna have a light duty
Mm-hmm.
chit. You're gonna have your gun taken away for a certain amount of time. And most of us, men in particular, most of us humans in this
Mm-hmm.
country, we identify with our
Mm-hmm.
jobs, and
yeah.
we have a lot of pride in our jobs. And if we
Mm-hmm.
have to do something that already makes us feel way more vulnerable than we're used to, and on
Mm-hmm.
top of that, you're going to take away my gun, my
Mm-hmm.
ability to do my job, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to know
Yep.
because now I don't have my gun. Why would
Mm-hmm.
I do that when I can just
Yep.
go drink so I don't feel feelings anymore and I'm squared
Mm-hmm.
away? And unfortunately, that works for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Compartmentalization, alcoholism, whatever, it works for too
Mm-hmm.
long, and it comes across
Yep. Yep.
more masculine because I'm being
Yeah.
tough, I'm being
Mm-hmm.
silent, or I'm drinking a tall boy or five.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow those are
Yep.
better, but right. But I think
It,
it comes down to something I heard a long time ago, that in the military they talk about how there's the three hardest things for a person to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that is take someone else's
Mm-hmm.
life, almost lose your
Yep.
own, and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the
And
three
it's
hardest
simulation
things
too,
for
because I
a man to
remember,
do. So,
and I feel like that was one of like the first unspoken, unwritten
no,
rules.
no, it's,
Go,
well,
sorry, go
yeah. So
ahead.
I was saying, even like when I was doing the behavioral health officer thing in the army, like we would talk about,
Oh, okay.
like,
Like,
you know, there. So use maybe like the LG X-ray kind of, we were soldiers kind of thing. So you get overrun and you say broken arrow, so you call for help when things are bad. There's going to be plenty of times when we're going to call for artillery or close air support or things of that nature. And I know those are military specific ones, but you
mhm.
know, to think that we have to hit everything on our own and we can't rely on other people is just, it's that rugged individualism like you were talking about that's just not true. But go ahead, Ben, what you're saying.
Right.
and I was just saying, I think that was one of the first, unspoken rules that I learned when I
Mm-hmm.
joined was whatever happens, you don't go ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, regardless of what the commander said, the first sergeant said,
Mm-hmm.
if you've got shit going on,
Yep.
don't get help. Like, deal with it. You can talk to your friends, or you can, do whatever, but don't
Mm-hmm.
don't go say anything, because then you're not mission
Mm-hmm.
ready, and you can't deploy and you can't do this. Because I know after I came back from both deployments,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Yep, you got to go check up with PHA or whatever it was." Both
Mm-hmm.
times they're like, "Are you drinking?" I'm like, "No."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've had like two since I got back a week
Right.
ago,
Right.
which was a bold faced lie. But as soon as I left, I turned around and went
Mm-hmm.
went to the class six and grabbed like a bottle of whiskey and
Mm-hmm.
went home
Well,
and
it's interesting. Even in
partied
the
my ass
outside
off.
world,
Mhm.
Like, it was just one of those. And then and even after I got out, it was like,
I was like, even in the outside world, we have these, depending on the state and what their rules are as far as like how you can fire people and for what reasons and stuff like that. Yeah, FMLA is protected, technically kind of thing. But you see it quite often where somebody, maybe they need to go inpatient for 72 hours, or maybe they need to do an IOP or a PHP to get themselves back. So now they're not going to be at work, but we don't have sick days and these kind of jobs, and then you miss too many days, and yeah, they're not going to fire you because legally they're not going to be able to fire you for that. But they find some other reason to say that you're not, meeting job
Yeah.
performance or job marks or all those kind of things, and you end up losing your job. And so those, I mean,
Mhm.
there's a real world. I mean, it's a fact. So then we're trying to help someone understand that, yeah, you might have these consequences, but maybe you won't be dead if you go to this, treatment, or they get this help and stuff. And it's tough, because are you going to come out of that treatment and not have a job, and then you're going to not be able to take care of your family? You're going to be homeless. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the right answer to that, really.
Which, if I came out of inpatient to no job, and the financial pressures of still having bills to pay, food to put on table, like
No way.
that would not
No way.
help me fresh out of an inpatient treatment at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
it just compounds the problem, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't help any. But yeah, I do think, I feel like job loss, or at least, if
Mm-hmm.
not job loss, at least being perceived differently by your
Mm-hmm.
employer, at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
is
I
probably the
mean, even
biggest
asking
one.
for reasonable accommodations
That's
can,
definitely another
make
big one.
people look at you differently and stuff like that.
Because it's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, I mean, I know when I worked at, well, because I know Remington, I met you
Mm-hmm.
when I worked at Penny Roll. Like they were good about it. I mean, they were a mental health
Mm-hmm.
organization, so they're a little bit different. But even still, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I just have an appointment. Like, it's still not one of
Mm-hmm.
those things where I particularly feel comfortable saying, oh yeah, I got to go see my
Mm-hmm.
therapist today, because, or I've got to go see my therapist, period. It's like, oh, I've got an appointment today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna head out a couple minutes early so I can make it and do whatever. Because that's not one of those things I want people
Mm-hmm.
knowing. Like, people close to me, I bullshit with them about it all the time, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
something I'd feel comfortable like going out of my way to tell a boss. Like, yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna go talk to my shrink,
Yeah.
because I'm not all there. So, because like you said, I could
Mm-hmm.
either fear of losing my job, or they'll look at me like, this guy's crazy. What are we doing? What are we doing? So, and I don't know about anybody
Mm-hmm.
else, but
That's for sure.
I'm not trying to lose out on any dollar I can possibly get,
Yeah.
especially these days with,
To
you know,
that end, to that end, I loved. There was a wing commander I heard of years ago who would intentionally
Mm-hmm.
schedule mental health appointments to come to mental health, and he would actually come. I didn't see him because I wasn't, senior enough, but
Mm-hmm.
he'd put it on his schedule. He'd tell everybody, "Hey, I've got my mental health appointment. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
back in an hour and a half," and that set the tone
Mm-hmm.
for the whole base. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, if the wing commander can go, I guess I
Mm-hmm.
can go. So a good portion of this, at least in the
Mm-hmm.
workforce or the military unit, is literal top cover of just letting the leadership set the tone that says,
Mm-hmm.
not only am I okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go too. I'm going to lead from the front, and I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this wing commander,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I understand, didn't even have much going on. He just come in and kind of shoot the breeze with whoever he saw.
Mm-hmm.
But taking that action
Mm-hmm.
and demonstrating to so
Mm-hmm.
many people, hey, just go do it. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it, so you can
I
do
had
it.
heard a story.
Really, really helped combat that stigma
but I feel like
because it was
even
none.
even in that regard, I feel like there's a big disparity between a high ranking officer being open
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
going to seek help, whether he was just in there bullshitting and it was performative or not. And,
Mm-hmm.
like your E4s, your junior enlisted
Mm-hmm.
people that, have shit going on, that do need to talk to someone like that.
Yep,
Both those individuals are looked
Mm-hmm.
at through two very different lenses and are treated very
hundred
differently.
percent, hundred
So,
percent.
like, but I don't, I like the idea of like people, leadership leading from the front, because, it's like, oh, well, because like I said, if it's good enough for them to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're willing to do it, then all right, there might be something worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or at a minimum, it's like, okay, well, they're willing to get down in the dirt with us,
Well, even having
so
transitioned to the civilian
Yep,
side
I'll
too, like
follow
I've
them.
been trying,
yep,
But
I haven't gotten anybody to
yeah,
bite yet. I'm really
yeah, I just
looking
feel
to
like
try to
there's
get some of these smaller, not necessarily this really small businesses, but like medium-sized businesses to take me up on this like mental health training kind of stuff, like going in and assessing what they have going on and things that could be helpful, and training all the folks on how you could take 1 hour out of your week or 2 hours out of your week to do this thing that you might feel like is not beneficial to the company, but you're going to have higher employment satisfaction, or you're going to have less people quitting the job. You're going to actually end up with more productivity for most, in most instances as well. But getting people again to recognize that,
Mm.
and like you said, the difference between even whether we're talking military or businesses on the outside, you have the CEO and those folks that kind of make their own schedule or have someone that makes their own schedule to carve out time to do this stuff is different than the person that you've got down there doing the labor that is making the business happen. Who's going to cover the front desk if that person takes off that hour when they have their 8-hour shift, and now you got to find people to plug in and do all these other different things. And you know is it worth it? Probably, to do that kind of stuff, but it's one more relatively pain in the ass step for those managers and leaders and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. But if you can get a frontline
Mm-hmm.
supervisor, a squad leader, flight chief,
Mm-hmm.
anyone in that kind of middle management, the one
Mm-hmm.
that's in the shit every day with those people, if they could do the
Mm-hmm.
same, if they could go get care, that would eliminate almost all the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, the big bosses going, but if you have your
Mm-hmm.
bosses
Mm-hmm.
going, your buddies going, now you're invested. Now it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
getting
Yep.
people to that point, I think that's where
Yep.
we're at right
Well,
now. That's
even
why we're
even
talking
if
about
we
this
go to the
right
level, say
now
say
because
it's
that's
a
not
smaller
quite
business that's
happening
not
yet.
able to really afford the time off to do those things, even just implementing and normalizing self-care. Like I remember the clinic I worked at when I was going through my
Right.
internship at Fort Sam Houston. There
Hmm.
was a room that was not really being used for much, and so they bought 3 massage chairs. And you could use them for your patients also. If they had a hard session or something like that, and they needed 15 minutes to decompress, whatever. But it was very, very, very
Uh-huh.
made clear that as the therapist there, if you needed a little break, go in there, knock out 20 minutes on that thing, relax, whatever, and then get back to business. And it's a little thing, and it's an investment of probably couple
Hmm.
$1,000 each of those things.
Hmm.
Um, but it helped. You saw people in there like frequently using it. Mm-hmm.
But when you invest in your
And the
people,
normalization of
you
it
get
too,
the
because
return on it is far
even
greater than whatever your
when it comes
investment
to
was.
the men's mental health side of stuff, like
Agreed.
you hear the word self care and people think it means like taking a bubble bath and scented candles, which are both things that I do, but
Right. And I was just
Yeah.
about to say that I feel like women are very in tune with what self care is,
mm-hmm.
whereas men, obviously, because of societal
Mm-hmm.
expectations and the stigmas that we
And it
have
looks different
surrounding
for
our
us
own
too.
mental health,
Like
you have no
like I
idea
said, for
what
me,
self
I
care
love a scented candle.
is. Not
It's
really.
great for me. Or a hot bath or something like that. But not every guy's going to want to do that. But also some of the things that are self care, and I had to try to explain this to my therapist to understand was like, for me, yeah, projects are projects and they get kind of overwhelming. But like going outside and building some raised garden beds so I can garden and have something to tend to this whole spring and summer, that's self care. Like it's a project that also kind of gives me a little bit of stress to get it done, but the end result of that
Right.
is then I get to
Hmm.
go out every day and I get to water and I get to see these things grow. And I've been getting into like lacto fermentation, so I like get those vegetables and ferment it and then
Yeah. It
have
gives you
something
like a
to cut
sense
and
of
all these different
purpose.
things. And that is self care, even though it's a project. So it looks different than what maybe the majority of women might want to do.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me, I do gun
Mm-hmm.
range, tattoo parlor,
It's funny. I
a
don't know
book
if
or pen and pad. I'm good to go. Like that's, and obviously I know I've got 2 small kids, so like spending time with the family is, but like just me, like individual time. Yeah. Gun range, tattoo parlor,
it's
uh,
funny you mentioned
put me in a
tattoo too, because
bookstore.
that's
I'll
another thing
spend
I
all
was
day
talking
in
to
a
my
Barnes and
therapist
Noble.
about. Like,
Easy.
uh,
Hmm.
No problems.
I get so like thinking about the future, or ruminating on the past. Like the one place that I am completely and totally in tune with that moment is getting a tattoo, because I'm focusing on the pain and managing it and staying still and all these things. And like
Yes. That
even if I'm talking with the artist a little bit here and there, like I'm in that moment. I'm very grounded in that time.
yeah, there's something about like the sound of the tattoo gun and like the needles hitting your skin. It's just like
Well,
it
like you said, the
forces you
gun
to kind
range
of just
there,
be
focusing on the
tuned
target,
into what's going on.
not having all
I
those
mean,
other
I've
things in the way, and thinking of, and just that singular idea of what you're doing, and being present.
oh yeah, that there's something, yeah, there's something very cathartic about Well, I mean, both sitting in it, like getting tattoos done, and
Well, to me
squeezing
too,
the trigger
everyone
at the
like,
gun range is
I
just like,
know that
all right,
if you weigh the health benefits,
it's
sometimes it
out
might not be
there.
great. But like smoking a cigar, like just sitting outside, especially if it's a good nice day, and then going along with the plant stuff I was talking about, like I got like some herbs and flowers and stuff growing on the deck now in the right time of
Oh
year.
yeah,
So just sitting there and kind of hearing the chirp of the birds or the croak of the frogs or whatever's going on out there, and smoking a cigar. It's just relaxing, and you're there in that moment, and it just looks different, you know.
yeah, yeah. Quiet, a little bit of quiet does wonders. It's
Self-care isn't always a behavior. Sometimes self-care could be purely
Yep.
psychological and emotional, whether it's, hey, am I giving myself a bit of compassion? Or, hey, where are my boundaries at? Hey, when's the last time I said no to someone asking me to do something?
Absolutely.
It can be something simple and intrinsic and internal.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to have a place to go to
Yeah.
do things. I love a gun range. Hell yeah. Although
yeah.
I'm not a tattoo guy, fellas. I've got zero tattoos. I'm
Oh,
the
you're
only,
missing
well, I
out,
know
man.
one.
Yeah.
I
You're
know
missing out.
one other Marine besides me without a tattoo. My wife is a Marine. She's got a tattoo. So
I've never met a Marine that didn't have at least the EGA. So that's
there you go.
you,
I don't even have that.
you are truly
I'm a
one.
blank canvas.
But yeah, it's definitely.
You are one of one.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, they're definitely not for everybody. But yeah, it's like because like you said, it's different for everybody. So not everybody wants to sit in a tattoo chair for 5-6 hours while someone pounds their skin with a bunch of needles. But for some of us, it's like relaxation.
I'm
'Cause
gonna
I
do a
think I've
quick
fallen asleep through
experiment.
most of mine.
Damn,
Because I know
that's
I know I
impressive.
did for sure. Like
Thanks,
on
man.
I got a big piece of my ribs. I fell asleep during that. That
I'm
might have
gonna
been the
do a
narcolepsy, but
quick
either way, I fell
example.
asleep. But yeah,
I'm gonna,
for me, it's relaxing. It's like I just get real, like I get too relaxed, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna drift off for a little bit.
That's
that's
good. That
true.
sounds really zen, man. That's meditative. That's good. Keep it
Yeah,
up.
too bad
That's
tattoos are
true.
so damn expensive, though.
Get hepatitis.
Yeah, there's that. And you can go
Yeah,
cheap, but then you get what
yeah,
you pay for.
yeah, yeah. My desire for tattoos
Yeah.
far outweighs my ability to get tattoos.
Oh
I
yeah,
hear
no. So
that.
it
I
was
hear
slowing
that.
down because
Is
my
Rem
internet
saying
was
something?
being
What's
weird.
happening
I
down
was
there?
just curious to see
I,
like,
I think he's just
since
talking to
everybody
himself.
uses Chat GPT these days, if you just put in what are some ideas for self care in Chat
Oh,
GPT, I wonder if they're who they're focused towards. So journaling, yeah, okay, that'd be good for for either. A lot of guys can get a lot of stuff out of that.
mhm.
Yeah,
Um, they're talking to a therapist is one here, of course. So that's the thing we're talking about being the stigma. Um, okay, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, as if that's possible for a lot of people. Um,
who gets God, especially if you have
there's the
kids, who's
saying
getting
no
seven
that
to
you had
nine
said
hours
on
of
there.
sleep?
That's a good one. Yeah, support
I'm not.
groups.
Chat GPT.
Yeah, one we didn't talk about, yeah, hobbies. That's definitely a big one. If you have the time, which is hard. All of us being parents can know that that's not always easy to carve out time for that. But you can find this the
Right.
quicker things. Like one thing I've gotten into baking my own bread at home, and I'm cheating
Yeah.
a little bit using a bread machine, but it's still good stuff. And it takes me maybe like I don't know 5-7 minutes
It still
to put
counts.
it all together, all the ingredients in there, and then hit a button. And yeah, it's a little thing, but it's I'm experimenting though, so it's becoming the hobby. So it's not just taking some
hmm
bread flour and the normal ingredients. I'll get like different types of flours and try them out, and put in different herbs or try different waters or all these different things. And so it's become something that doesn't really take that much time out of my relatively busy day, um, but I'm still able to get something out of it. And same when I was talking about the fermentation, not only does it help my gut, um, but again, it's one of those things like all you're really doing, get a mason jar and you get the airlock and stuff that you need for it, put whatever vegetable in there, pour over the salted water brine, whatever herbs and spices and stuff you want to put in there, block it off and set it for a week to 3 weeks, depending on a thing. So you get to kind of play around with different flavors and different ideas and stuff, and it's fun to do. But it's not a real big time suck at the same
hmm
time. Mm-hmm.
I've
It
seen
is.
I see your post and I'm like, man, that shit looks delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looks fantastic. Like, well, my wife just started teaching me how to
Mm-hmm.
cook because so it was just a never skill a skill I picked up. So it's like I've learned that that's kind of like it's. I wouldn't say I would use it as self care, but it is. It is in a sense like it's like okay, well, it gives me something to focus on and pay attention to and learn. That's not chase my kids around the house or you know running to the store to buy stuff or paying a bill. It's like all right, I've got one singular thing that I can focus on
Well, and as
for
the kids get older, it's
the
working with
next
them to do
hour.
it too, and it's togetherness and all
And
those things. It's part of
I
the
get
self care and with them.
yeah
Mm-hmm.
yeah family bonding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting back to the stigma conversation in self care, what I can't stand is when if someone is feeling down or off at work and they notice, like, hey man, are you doing enough self care? Like they're almost turning it on the person, like blaming them as if they're not executing enough self care. That way, it's still their fault. It's still
Well, and
there's
even
still
the idea of
stigma
just
surrounded because they're
work-life
just not
Oh
balance.
doing
yeah
it enough. It's
See, like with
crazy.
yeah
work-life
they
balance,
It's
you
almost
look at
crazy.
use
some
it
of
When
as
the
like
I
a
think,
countries that like a siesta in
yeah it's like
Spain
they
and
bring it up
Mexico,
and
or
use
you look at some of the, I think it's the Netherlands if I remember right. That would just their work days were significantly
yep.
shorter, and I was talking with a social worker in England, and like their caseloads are just drastically
Hmm.
smaller than anything we see here, and like and seeing that sometimes, like you said, it's not necessarily even a thing or
Hmm.
that it's a structure
Yeah.
that we operate within that can be self care.
Right. What were we going to say, Ben?
um shoot must not have been very important because I don't remember what I was even saying.
It's
But
okay. Train of thought derails for me all the time too. Don't sweat it.
but Remington was just saying something about siesta. That was a bit of a culture shock to me when I got to Italy because I don't remember what it's called in Italy, but there's like a 4 hour window in the middle of the day where everything just shuts down. Like you basically can't get anything done. Like your day is pretty much shot if you had any plans to like if you needed to go pay a bill out on the economy and you went to go pay it in the afternoon, good luck because they're closed. They might open up for like another hour or two at the very end of the day, or they may not open up till the next day. You don't know. But yeah, I feel like the U.S. work schedule is very unique to the U.S. Like everybody else has a much different understanding of that work-life balance and taking care of their employees and people taking care of themselves so that when they are at work or doing a task they're motivated and they actually have like the energy to focus on whatever it is they're trying to do,
Yep.
which
Yeah, I've
I think
advised every boss I've ever had for the last almost 10 years that as a boss, there are only three things you can do to really motivate your people. And it's not micromanaging, it's not adding to their mission creep. It's can you give them time, money, or food? And food is like, the pizza party, it's such a cliche.
yeah
But if you can give them time away or time back, taking off some of their workload, or if you give them a bonus, these are the kinds of things that's what's going to motivate people. Um, and we don't think of that enough. We look at it as like, no, you need to be productive 100% of the time. We need to be efficient. Um, People forget that workers are not robots. They are humans. They need to eat, sleep, and poop and have a moment of rest. But there's this, I don't know, Amazon.com perspective on work where it's like, no, no, no. If
No,
you're at
not at
work,
all.
you're working.
yeah
And that's not how you get productivity out of people.
yeah you
You don't
can't
squeeze them.
expect
Yep.
productive employees when you work them to the bone every
Yeah,
single
and
day
that goes
Yes.
right
5 days
back
a
to the
week.
stigma because
Yes.
it's
Yes.
Like
I don't know.
Exactly.
It just seems
Exactly.
like by saying, hey, I need to go take 5 minutes, unless it's a smoke break, that seems to be a totally acceptable norm. If it's for some other reason, like a fresh air break, yeah, yeah. But if it's somebody, I need a
right,
fresh air break, or I need to go
which
Yeah.
walk around
yeah,
the
that's a whole
building, or I
different
need to
conversation too.
just get a hold of myself, or and again, I haven't been in the outside world to see if these things hold true too. But like we teach our soldiers when they're having some kind of a conflict or some kind of issue to do some deep breathing or do whatever kind of mindfulness kind of deal. And then you have these supervisors, these leaders that because breath makes a sound, then that means that they're being disrespectful and something, and have a problem with them just stepping away for 5 minutes to collect themselves and come back to it and
Mm.
whatnot. And it's just I don't know. It's like we have to address it right now, and so we don't get the chance for the self care, and then we become this angry asshole and then that becomes a problem, and it's just a spiral.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And shit rolls downhill. It just gets exponentially worse. And I mean, I've been trying to incorporate that, even being at home, like
Mm-hmm.
just finding a
Mm-hmm.
minute to give myself 5-10 minutes, even
Much.
if it's like going out and smoking a cigarette, or just, you know, sitting out on the porch, like taking the dogs out so they can go to the bathroom, and just sitting out there for 10-20 minutes. Just like, all right,
Mhm.
I have had my few minutes to, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, be in the quiet, ready to come back in and recharge
Mm-hmm.
and take on
Well, it kind
whatever's
of leaves
going on
you.
inside the house. because
Absolutely.
it's always
What I
something.
do is I actually break up my day into quarters. I actually wake up at 6,
Mm-hmm.
and then around 10, it's like, all right, first quarter's
Yeah.
over. Let's do a recap. Let's hit the showers. Let's go get a drink, and then lunch at 12, and then break again at 4, and then home at 6, and try and break up my day into quarters instead of just looking at it as one day. Because if some shit happens at 9, I don't want it to shit on my
Mm-hmm.
entire day. I won't be able to say, man, they really had me in the first quarter, but by third quarter, I had that shit figured out. So that's something that I do for myself is every quarter I
Mm-hmm.
stop and I'll go to the vending machine and get a Dr. Pepper or something just to break it up, because otherwise it just turns into this long day. And
Yeah.
because we're humans, we tend to highlight
Mm-hmm.
the things that sucked. And if we had one thing that sucked in our one day, we think the whole day sucked. But if that second quarter, man, they really got me. But by the third quarter, I had it turned around, and then fourth quarter, I was home and I was good to
I like
go.
that a lot. Yeah.
That tends to help me at least. But
Yeah, I mean that's
and then when
yeah,
I
that's,
get home, I ask my kids, I need to know your high, your low,
Mm-hmm.
and your buffalo
That's cool.
about the day today. We talk about what's good, what sucked, what was weird.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean that's not a bad way to
Mm-hmm.
break it up. I hadn't thought about it like that. I
It
mean,
just makes it fun. Sports
I mean,
analogies are fun.
but
So
I'm also a stay-at-home dad, so I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest worry I've got typically is just making sure the housework's done,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's laundry
mhm,
or doing the
That's
dishes or
important.
just general tidy up. It's like, you know,
sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
but
you can
yeah,
even do like, hey, first quarter is going to be all laundry.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get it done in 20 minutes, hey, the rest of the first quarter is going to be chill. Or hey, let's bring second quarter stuff in the first quarter, whatever, just
Mm-hmm.
to give yourself guaranteed breaks throughout the day. Like it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. You can look forward to it. You can actually plan for it and do things with it. Simply because he made it
Mm-hmm.
into a game. He made it into quarters. Or what doesn't hockey do
Mm-hmm.
periods? Or soccer does halves. I don't know. Whatever sport you like.
yeah.
Curling. Do they even have breaks? I don't know. But
I don't know. I like cricket. I don't know how it's broken up and
there
how
you
they
go.
play, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna. I got a cricket bat, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna run with that. I don't even know
Yeah.
how to play that
Yeah.
game.
But cricket bats are legit. They look like weapons. So
Yes, no, I got one as a going away present when I left England.
That's
They
cool.
bought everybody that left, a personalized cricket bat, and it sat in my mother-in-law's house in England for the better part of a
That's
decade. And then
cool.
when she finally moved to the States, she brought it with her. I was so excited to have it back. So now it's
nice.
just
Well, things I
chilling.
was thinking of, we talked
I
a
just
lot
happened to
about the
look over and saw it, and I was
self-imposed
like,
like
cricket.
men to men stigma and stuff. But what's interesting too is I don't know that I've ever met any man who has not had his emotions or his needs, when expressed, thrown back at him by a woman in his life. Um, and not necessarily, and it's not always necessarily a partner either. Because what's been really eye opening that I kind of
Yeah.
probably knew but didn't for sure know, I've since you get started in the private practice, I joined a few like therapist supporting therapist groups or things of that nature, and the stigma even within the mental health field, which is
Mhm.
primarily female dominated, like just these biases and these things that come out in the way that they describe whatever man that they're working with or the problem that they're facing or et cetera, et cetera. And so, I mean, it's tough because then when you have a bad experience from a woman or women, when you do actually open up and say something about your emotions, and then you have a field that's primarily women, that is just hard to even go in and talk in the first place, even if you know they're professional. And then if those things come out in this professional setting, are
Mhm.
you ever going to go to therapy again? Right.
Well, I know
Yeah.
when I first started using the VA, my first
Mm-hmm.
therapist was a female, and I don't know if it was just because she was a really bad therapist or
Mm-hmm.
or what, but it was just a wholly
Mm-hmm.
bad experience. Like we didn't move anywhere. Like as far as,
Mm.
and I don't know if that's because men, like I feel like taken as a whole, men are still very much a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
rarity in therapeutic circles, especially as patients.
Mm-hmm.
That she wasn't prepared to have a male client,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore she didn't know what to do or how to
Mm-hmm.
approach it, or if, like I
Yeah.
said, if she was just a bad therapist that had no
Yeah.
business having an office at the clinic. But I mean
Mm-hmm.
that came really close. Like that put me off therapy, and I came close to just quitting. But then they're like, no, we got this new guy coming in. I met with him,
And
fantastic,
I've had
and then
both.
he went and left me. But
I've had men and women therapists, and
that's a
good
different
experiences and bad
conversation.
experiences with
But yeah,
both
so
as well. But it's just I don't know. It's interesting to see how some men might want that and say I need a different perspective, and then we have to be careful not to commiserate, as well when our own experiences and having that that transference counter transference stuff going on. Um,
right,
but I mean, I
Mm.
think we seem to understand as a society that other demographics, regardless of whether it's gender or race or um, country of origin or whatever the demographic we're talking about, tend to gravitate towards folks that are similar to them, whether it be medical or whether it be mental health or whether it be their accountant or anything. Like a lot of these things are that way. Um,
yeah.
yeah, but we seem to not.
Which maybe
It doesn't seem like
makes a bit
we're
of
willing to
sense.
accept that that might be true for men as well. That maybe we can gain something from a man who has been there and also has the training to help you through that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
One of the things I wanted to get to
Mm-hmm.
was toxic masculinity is propagated by all genders, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
made the worst by a man's spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Simply that
Mm-hmm.
women kind of sometimes will expect a man to
Mm-hmm.
always be on, to always be tough, to always be on a white horse. And I've talked with hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
men and tell them they need a safe place to cry and still be
Mm-hmm.
called a warrior. And typically that's at home, and most people that's what they get. But I've run into so
Mm-hmm.
many men that will go home and they'll try
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable, they'll try to access their emotions, they'll try to cry with their wife, and their wife will say,
Mm-hmm.
why are you being a bitch right now? Why don't you
Mm-hmm.
man up right now? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh crap, like that is
yeah.
the worst thing to happen to a man, to have
Oh yeah,
his, life partner basically
Mm-hmm.
reject his entire emotional self. That is some of the most destructive stuff that can
Mm-hmm.
ever happen.
yeah.
So when we
Because
talk about toxic masculinity, everybody does it.
that hits
Everybody
on
does
so
it.
many different levels too, though. Because it's you're insulting a man's masculinity.
Hmm.
It's not, and then obvious, and like you say, it's stigmatizing expression of emotion, and it's coming from the one person that you would
It was
expect
supposed to
to
be
be able
safe.
to,
Well, I know I haven't seen.
be able to be vulnerable
Okay.
with. Like,
Exactly.
and I mean, I feel
Exactly.
like I'm fortunate because I actually have the opposite problem. Like, my wife wants me to be more
Yeah.
like emotional and vulnerable, but I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'll do it in private if I do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could probably count on one
Dude,
hand the
that's not
number of
man.
times I've cried in front of her. But I mean, I'm very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's biggest
Well, and
supporter.
I know it's anecdotal, but
God
like.
knows how she does it. But you know, so but I've got friends that have had partners that are like you said, like, why are you being a bitch? Why are you sad about this?
Hmm.
What
Yep.
It's like, dude,
Yep.
they're allowed to have
Mm-hmm.
feelings. Like,
Yeah.
what's the problem? You want a
Yeah.
good man, but then when he tries to do something that would generally be considered a green flag, like being emotionally vulnerable, you're gonna criticize and patronize him for it. That's not
Yeah.
tracking.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because she grew
Mm-hmm.
up with toxic masculinity as well, so she expects those
Yeah,
toxic
Oh yeah.
masculinity traits. So
yeah.
that's why I'm saying
It's very
toxic
much
masculinity
generational. Yeah,
needs to be addressed across all genders. Oh, absolutely, yeah,
and
generational,
and
gender, everything.
hopefully with mental health awareness as a whole, and with a rise in more healthy men
Mm-hmm.
specific mental health discussions,
Mm-hmm.
that'll
Hmm.
change. Like, by the time my son gets married, or by the time my daughter gets married, hopefully things will have been changed, and
Mm-hmm.
there won't be that expectation of stoicism where the man doesn't show any emotion, and
Yeah.
there won't be that stigma around
Mhm.
being emotionally vulnerable in front of loved ones or anyone really. Uh,
Right.
but I think
Yeah.
we're on. I think from what I've seen, I feel like we're on the right track. But I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be at least another generation or two,
Right.
as long as we
Yeah.
don't regress as a society in any
Yeah.
significant kind of way. Because
Well, I was gonna
it's
say
definitely not something that we can just fix overnight.
No, not at all.
And it's good. It's a lot of unlearning bad behaviors on male or female. There's a lot of bad behaviors that we as a society need to unlearn
I'd be
and
curious to
replace
see
with
actual,
appropriate behavior.
like a study of some form,
Yeah.
actual empirical data of like how many
So,
men have had an actual experience, whether it be from another man or from a woman or their partner or whatever, um, giving them that pushback when they are showing an emotion. Because I don't know if you guys ever listened to Dax, the rapper. He's got a couple of good songs kind of about men. There's one called "To Be a Man" and then one called "A Real Man." And like just even like not only is the song so
mhm.
totally accurate to most of the experience, but then just like go on YouTube and look at all the comments. So many, like thousands and thousands and thousands of guys saying that they've experienced literally what is going on and being talked about there. And it's just telling, and I know that's anecdotal at that point, but still, it's
Well,
real lived
another,
experience
Wow.
from people. Yeah.
but it still counts for something. I mean, but another one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
speak just since you mentioned music. Ren is another good one. He does a lot. A lot of his
Hmm.
music is
Definitely.
focused around
Right.
mental health and taking care of yourself and not
Yep.
taking care of yourself. Like what happens if you don't take care of yourself? So I mean, I've heard a couple of
Yes, to
Dax
be a
songs. I
man.
heard the
That's
one he
one of
did
the
with
remixes because he's got
Darius
the
Rucker.
original
I think it
one.
was
Then
How
there's
to
the
Be a
version
Man.
with Darius Rucker, and then they have this mega
Yeah.
remix. It's like a 10-minute song with a whole bunch of different folks doing their track on it. Um, it's
Holy
pretty
shit!
good. But so as we're kind of wrapping up,
Interesting.
you got some good stuff. As we're kind of wrapping up, one
I'll
of
have
the
to, I'll have to
things
look. I'll have to dig more into
we've
his
talked a
stuff.
lot about what the stigmas are and whatnot, and I think it's really important just to see that we are the ones who are going to change that. Not you three of us specifically, but as men, we're going to be the ones that are going to change this, stigma. We have to see the benefits and understand that we can be stronger with that
Yep.
support and stuff like that. And so like with the side of going into therapy, so like what would you guys say
Hmm.
to a friend that wasn't able to come see you for therapy? Um, what they should look for if they were to go on to Psychology Today or one of these ZocDoc or whatever kind of places to try to find a therapist? Like, what questions should they ask their therapist? What qualifications should they look for in the profile and things of that nature?
Mm, I mean, I feel like with with any kind of with any other job, like how many
Mm-hmm.
like their experience, like how long have they been doing it? Like, so if they've been doing it for I'll just say
Mm-hmm.
like 5 years or more. It's like, okay, they've probably been around a couple of times. They've probably
Mm-hmm.
seen a pretty healthy, variety of different kind of people. Um, but I know that doesn't necessarily always track. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there are therapists out there that only have a couple of years in that would be a lot more better fitting for friends of mine that,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a therapist that may have had, 20
Mm-hmm.
years experience, because you also want to factor in
Mm-hmm.
like age, because like you said, relatability. Like I'm going to relate to a younger therapist a lot better than I am to
Mm-hmm.
someone who's
Definitely.
been in the game and has been doing this for 40,
Mm-hmm.
50 years. That's
Hmm.
a bit on the older side. Like, I mean, that's just one of the things. I mean, um, but I mean, like, well, because I'd recommended to a friend of mine recently to go get therapy because he was waiting on the VA to
Mm-hmm.
assign him a mental health uh, therapist, and I was like, well, you can't wait that long. You need to like go out
Mm-hmm.
in the community and find someone to talk to. Um, I was like, the first session may not be great, because you don't really know what you're getting into and you don't know the person. So, but I was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this isn't a good fit after the first session or two.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you just don't feel like you're connecting with your therapist, then
Right.
there's nothing
Definitely.
wrong with saying, hey, I'm gonna try somewhere else. And unfortunately, that you don't
Right.
really know if you're going to mesh with a therapist until you're actually in their office, like talking to them.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
like that's still, one of those things that I'd tell people to look for, like gauge how you feel like you meshed with your therapist when you went in there.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel comfortable talking to them,
Mm-hmm.
maybe try somewhere else, see what happens.
Right.
But it's like you don't have to commit to the first one
That's
you go
why
to. If
I
you don't
have
if you don't
the
mesh, you
like
don't
the
mesh.
free 15-minute
Like it
consultation
happens.
kind of thing, and
So
just for that reason, and that would be a suggestion I have too. Is like look for the folks who have that 15-minute consultation available, just to talk about, give you a little overview of what's going on with me, tell me about you, kind of see if you have any of that, rapport or that therapeutic alliance to even start with. And um, what do you think, Paul?
yeah.
I usually say, well, when you come to a therapist, 33% are objectively terrible.
Mm-hmm.
33% are useful but not great. And that last 33%, they're insightful, they're
Mm-hmm.
organic, they consider more than just like the simple
I like
stuff.
that. Yeah.
So you've got to try at least 3 therapists at minimum. So if you walk in with the first one, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about this one. Don't give up yet. See if they got a 50-minute consultation. Go to someone else, see what else works. But I also say maintain an open mind. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
remember back in active duty, if I ever had a female that had a history of sexual abuse, I'm like, well, no, I shouldn't see
Right.
them because it's bad for them to see me. And I had a supervisor
Mm-hmm.
tell me, wouldn't it be a really neat corrective emotional experience to work with a male therapist to
Yeah.
process their trauma? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's why you're
Mm-hmm.
supervisor and I'm not. And I work with so many, right? I work with so many
Mm-hmm.
female sexual abuse survivors, and it was fantastic because they would come sit with me and they would say the same thing I had, and I would tell them, "Hey, I
Mm-hmm.
agreed with you at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but I had someone much smarter than
Mm-hmm.
me consider this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to try?" And it's like 50% said yes, 50% said no, and I had no problem with that. But the 50% that
Mm-hmm.
confirmed to stick with me, man, that well, by the time we were
Right.
done, they agreed. They're like, "Wow, like it really did help to have an open mind, and it really was fantastic to
Mm-hmm.
work with a man when that was the perpetrator of
Mm-hmm.
their trauma. It was really effective to work
Mm-hmm.
with a man.
Yeah, that's
So
a good
just
point
in
too, because
general, having
even
an
if the
open
man,
mind with whoever it is you're going to work with. Um, Heck, the last couples counselor I worked with, I walked in and I was
mm-hmm.
like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about this guy,
Yeah,
but by the
yeah,
time we
yeah,
were
that's a good
done, I
point.
was like,
Even for the
oh, this
men
guy's good.
who are looking for a therapist, you don't have
So
to just
open
only
mind,
consider men.
open mind.
There's, there are women who are very in tune with the experience and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, the therapist I'm seeing right now is a woman, and she's phenomenal. Um, so yeah, that open mind thing is definitely, absolutely, absolutely.
Yep.
So
I
we're,
know
getting
some
kind of
badass female
towards the end of time
therapists.
here. I want to
So
make sure we
yeah.
wrap up um, and do that the right way. So I think we picked quite a bit of really important stuff. And I just want to say to anybody
Hmm.
out there listening, we're going to be doing a lot more things of this nature, talking about the men's mental health experience and the things that are unique to us. So just keep tuned in and let us know if there's any specific topics you want to talk about, and we'll
Hmm.
start doing that. Any final words? All right, brothers. See you soon.
No.
Words.
Yep. Words. All right.